Hi, folks. Welcome today to the Action Network Automate with Ladders training. My name is Seth. We'll get started here shortly. Thank you so much for joining us. Great crowd. Hey, folks, I see folks filtering in as I admit people. We're going to get started here at 3 p.m. Eastern for this training. Today's training is a special training. It's our Automate with Ladders training. It's our first specialized training of 2021. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll get started here shortly. So good to see folks. Thanks so much for making time again to join today's training. My name is Seth Pickney. I am a partner success specialist with Action Network and Action Builder. And I see folks filtering in. I'm gonna give folks an opportunity to join. Oh, you will note that you're on mute. This is just to account for the background noise. We have a pretty large group here today for today's training. So so as per normal, we do have folks on mute to prevent any undue interruptions. All right, it is 3 o'clock, and I want to be respectful of folks' time. I know people are filtering in. We'll be using the chat feature today in Zoom. I'm assuming folks are familiar with the chat feature in Zoom as of now. If you do have access to the chat feature, we will be using that in order to interact for today's training. And I just ask that we can kind of get to know each other via the chat. I'm gonna go ahead and drop my information in and kind of get an idea of who's in the space together today. So like I said, my name is Seth. Pronouns are he, him. I am with Action Network. I actually head up the trainings with Action Network. I also work with the Action Builder toolset, which is our sister toolset. And I am headquartered and located in Cleveland, Ohio. All right, so yeah, let's get some participation going in the chat. I see one of my colleagues here, Valeria, has joined us. Welcome. Hi, Jeff. Hi, Tristan. Hi, Mark. Hi, Todd. Hi, Jeff. And So I think I see Valeria here. Actually, Valeria, I'm going to go ahead and make you a oops. Unmute Valeria and actually make you a co-host. So we have quite a few folks joining us today. So thank you for your patience as I admit folks to join. So if you can, as we're waiting, as folks join us, I'm asking if you could access the chat here on Zoom to introduce yourself. My name is Seth, pronounced he, him. I'm with Action Network, and I'm a partner success specialist and head up training here with Action Network as well. We got a good sized group here. I want to thank everyone for making time for joining us for this training. This is our first specialized training of the year. We do offer our monthly trainings, our 101 through our 104 series, which covered our core features of the tool set. But every so often, we do like to highlight certain features that folks may not be aware of or might be underutilizing in order to provide some education and training around those features. And this week, we're really focusing in on our ladders feature. So I'm so glad that you're able to join us to learn a little bit more about that. All right, it looks like we might be at a place where we can go ahead and all right. So I see folks are introducing themselves in the chat. Thank you so much for those intros. And I'm gonna go ahead and get started. You continue to add your information to the chat if you have not been able to. And we will be coming back to the chat again, like I said, so that we can have some engagement going where we're kind of interacting. We'll have opportunities to drop questions as well into the chat, and I'll be fielding those along with my colleague here. So in getting started for today, I just want to say hi, greetings to everyone. You will note that you're muted. It's just so that we have as much background noise. And if you have any questions, please add them to the chat and they'll be addressed as time allows for today. We do have quite a bit to cover. This is a learning session, so we'll be actively learning. Hopefully folks have opportunity to pay attention. This is also being recorded. So the recording will be shared at the end of the training as well for your reference. I just want to double check and make sure that I'm indeed recording the session. And I will be guiding you through, as I discussed, one of our core features that we're really excited about, which is the ladders feature. And for today's agenda, I'll just do a brief intro of myself. Like I said, my name is Seth. I am the partner success specialist with Action Network / Action Builder. I've been with the organization for 2 years now. I do head up trainings, help to develop those. I'm really interested and happy to be leading this training today on ladders. In addition to having a background in advocacy and digital organizing, I worked a bit on the private side of doing marketing automation for some larger companies that exist out there, and just knowing some of the various tools that exist in the space and seeing how it's changed over time and what it can really be utilized for, and really kind of thinking about it in the frame of our progressive work. I know folks are coming from all different types of organizations, but automation is not necessarily something that we heavily utilize or kind of think about as a way to expand our programs. So I want to delve a little bit deeper into that, and I'm just happy to be leading that training, this training today. And we'll talk a little about what ladders are, why do we call ladders ladders, and also like what is automation and what does that mean with regard to our programs. Additionally, I'll go over a use case. Our partners Run for Something were able recently to use ladders very successfully for their program. And then I will demo, I'll set up a couple of examples of how you can really kind of get up and using ladders pretty quickly, particularly with the new templates that we just shared recently last year. With everything that's going on right now, I wouldn't be surprised if folks have had their attention diverted and maybe have not been able to be in the know of some of the changes and updates that we've made. But we're really looking at focusing in on our mobile messaging as a tool to really engage your members and your activists this year, in addition to using tools like Ladders. Because when you're really thinking about Action Network, it is the premier digital tool set that organizers can use to know more about their people and help to folks recognize their power and build more progressive power. All right. So I talked enough, I think, about myself. And if you're here, you probably are Action Network partner, or you are familiar with Action Network and what we offer. As the premier digital organizing tool set, we're not really trying to do focus on like multiple things or be all things to all people. We really are narrow focused on digital organizing. And for the sake of today's training, really kind of, again, want to tell you and talk about what ladders are. So when we talk about ladders, we're talking about the ladders of engagement. And as organizations that work with partners that are progressive and have progressive values, we want to incorporate that language from the movement into our product. So you'll see that often with our activists and our networks and how we call our clients partners, or our partners are our clients. And with that share, there are a few ways to kind of really think about ladders and in the engagement, and they really include an organizer's way of tracking folks' leadership growth over time. So we talk about that a lot with our Action Builder tool set. It's a method to provide intentional support to people for providing steps or rungs of engagement over a period of time. And perhaps it's a way to quantify or assess how involved or connected someone is to an issue. So really, it's a way to kind of know more about your folks and keep them engaged over time. So that's really kind of, in thinking about ladders, we kind of want to wrap our head around that in tandem with the automation piece as well. So as it relates to automation, what is it and why do we want to use it, and what's the big fuss about automation? By definition, digital automation is just simply a technology that automates processes. You can use it to track user engagement. It delivers, at its core, it should be delivering a personalized experience to your individuals or the organizations that you are connecting with. And I just really want to note that while automation is powerful, it is not an end-all, be-all by any means for our work. We cannot just kind of rely on it as a set it and forget it tool, where rather it is just another tool in our toolbox to help us to be able to reach more folks and better amplify our messages. And I really like to think about that as a way to kind of get to know our people better. So the people at your workplace, the people in your community, and also potentially reach more people. So some other reasons that digital organizers might use automation include maintaining and increasing their activist engagement in a more efficient way. And again, in talking about automation and kind of like selling it to folks internally, these might be some talking points for you. Freeing up time for other high priority tasks for organizers and their teams to work on. So if you have like strategy that you need to kind of give more attention to, it does give you an opportunity to plan ahead. So kind of thinking about how at the beginning of a new year, for example, or beginning of a quarter, you might be sitting down and planning out those goals for the year. We can set up these conversations with folks in ladders and kind of plan ahead for what are perceived kind of pathways or journeys that folks that we're organizing, we can anticipate they're going to be taking. So for example, you could plan out a full campaign in ladders, and you can communicate with specific targets on your list. So if you're familiar with Action Network, you know you have a really a strong ability to target specific folks on specific activists based upon the actions they might have taken. Letters can diminish your dependence on one-off communication. So for example, instead of uploading a list, every time you have an event, you might have a list where you're uploading it. Every single time you upload that, then you're sending a one-off welcome email. With ladders, you can now do this in a seamless and automatic process. So you could have a form where people are filling that out, or you can have a certain tag where the people that are new signups to your list, they're automatically getting fed into this ladder via that trigger so that they can receive these messages in a seamless way. And again, I really want to point out that the most important thing is that we get to know more about our people. So we're collecting more data, we're following up with people in a more timely manner, and so that they're giving us more information as we're doing that follow-up as well. So again, I promised you that we would be using the chat. So I'm going to take a pause here. And now that we've defined ladders and automation, so we're all on the same page, I wonder what are some of the reasons folks have joined today's training. Perhaps you use ladders or you've used automation in the past. Maybe this is all new to you. But I'd like to get a gauge on how you would like to use Action Network ladders for your program. So A, you want to send a welcome series or mobile messages to welcome people onto your list. B, you want to better engage with members over a period of time. So again, that pre-planning. So maybe you're doing something over a series of weeks or months. C, to send surveys. So this year, as we were rolling out mobile messaging, we did a fun survey game with folks that attended Netroots Nation. D, maybe you want to reactivate lapsed members. Maybe you have an existing list of folks that are opted in, but you haven't talked to them in a while. We can re-engage them through ladders. And then maybe E, maybe you're just not sure yet. So I'll give folks a moment to add their answer. Either A, B, C, D, or E. We kind of get a poll on kind of what are some reasons folks are interested in ladders today. All right, so I'm seeing all of the above. B and C, better engage over time. Send surveys. All of them. Some folks aren't sure yet. That's fine. All of them. Again, giving folks an opportunity to answer. It looks like most people are saying all of them, which I don't blame you. If you are a partner, you have access to be able to do all of these strategies and more. So thanks, Diane. Thanks, Justin. All right, thanks everyone for your responses. But the lucky thing is that we can do all those things and more that we talked about. But again, we provide the platform and the technology for you to be able to execute that. And then with these templates that we've made, it allows you to be able to better kind of strategize around how you want to go ahead and use ladders to automate some of these communications. And one of these really fantastic use cases, we actually just published a blog late yesterday, which was with Run for Something. And I want to just dedicate a few moments to that. In training, we'd like to really kind of pull out what are some real world examples, use cases where other organizations were able to use something from our toolkit to make their program stronger, better. So you might be familiar with Run for Something. They are a national nonprofit that works to recruit young progressives to run for office. It's plain and simple. So as an Action Network partner, they realized that a lot of folks were coming to them and they were asking the same repetitive questions about running for office. And some of their questions were more complex. Like, for example, I live in a red district, and what is the likelihood of me winning a council race? And they found that potential candidates, they didn't really know what was the next step to take. Because again, they work with everyday folks, young people that are interested in running for something, but they may not know how to get involved. So as an Action Network partner, they decided to use our ladders feature to create a 7-day automated welcome series. And they used email in order to do this. And they introduced all of their Run for Something team members, and they provided all the different services that they provided to the candidates. They kind of spelled that out in the emails over this 7-day period. And according to them, this was really a game changer for how they were able to engage with a rather large list of folks that sign up for their services. And as a national organization that's dedicated to building the bench of passionate young Democratic candidates, they are always constantly welcoming new potential candidates into their pipeline. So this may sound familiar to some of your programs where perhaps you have a list out there or you really focus on list growth, and providing them with some kind of service. And in this case, they're providing hands-on support about information about running for office. And their alumni list is like 1,500 people and counting. And they have a really strong bench of experts in all 50 states that provide information about to individuals who are interested in running. So each candidate might be at a potential different stage. So that was really kind of the issue and the opportunity to make more efficient communication happen. So they started using ladders to streamline the conversations and make sure that the potential candidates were getting the pertinent information that they needed. So timely information and relevant information. So their strategy with their welcome email was to start off with something like very basic. So again, we're thinking about that ladder of engagement when we're talking about organizing, good old fashioned organizing. We might give someone a task. It might be a simple task, the same strategy with this method of communication. So they give them an idea of what they want to do, how they do it, and how they will support those potential candidates along the journey. And with each email, the message becomes a bit more comprehensive, a little bit more information, so that it's a little bit more digestible over time, and it gets more nuanced. And in creating the 7-day welcome series, Run for Something has seen an uptick or increase in engagement among their potential candidates, which has really been, again, a game changer for them in how they do their programmatic work, and they continue to use that. And so I just wanted to share that because it kind of level sets our discussion for today and showing that this is something that, if you are a partner, you do have access to. And in fact, this is something that current partners are actively using, and it's really working for them. So before we jump into the demo, before I jump in and demo the features, I'm going to slow down a little bit because we're actually doing pretty good on time. I want to cover the components. So you might be familiar with the ladders feature as a partner. So you might have seen it, you may have used it, and you may have started to use it and kind of maybe backed off a bit because it seemed a little confusing. But that's why we're here today, to kind of break it down for you and introduce the templates, which we really believe make it much easier for you to get started using. But as you know, ladders are a powerful and flexible tool for automating emails and mobile messages. They allow you to design sophisticated campaign journeys for your activists as they subscribe to your list or take a specific action. So for example, sign a petition, open an email, open a text message, submit a letter campaign, donate. You have the ability to send activists down these various paths or decision trees. And this means that you can simulate a conversation. So basically, the rungs are the first component. So every ladder must contain at least one rung. So here in this GIF example or GIF example, in this circle here, we're seeing what we call a rung. So if you go to the ladders page, and I'll show you when we do the live demo, you'll note that you start with creating a rung. So you see here, I scrolled over this green plus sign here to the right, and this will produce your first rung of your ladder. So every ladder must contain at least one rung. Rungs can be thought of as containers of steps that belong together, as well as entry points into the ladder. So this first rung is going to be my entrance point. So again, thinking about that ladder engagement, how do we invite activists to join and be a part of this conversation that we're having with them? So after entering, an activist moves from top to bottom. So this will be the top and moving our way down in their steps through the ladder. And you can click and add a new rung when editing the ladder using the green plus button here. So we can add new ladders that way. And you can add new rungs below or above existing rungs. And we'll go into the next piece, which is triggers, but each rung must have a trigger. And what does trigger mean? So we'll get into triggers. So to recap, our first component of the ladder are rungs, which are containers for the information. And then the next piece is triggers. So an activist enters a ladder via a trigger. As shared, each rung must have at least one trigger. And each trigger describes the action an activist must take to enter the ladder at that rung. So for example, some example triggers here. Again, you as an activist enter the letter via a trigger. And some example triggers could be you received an email. Again, I'm showing you this where I'm editing this specific trigger. You could open a specific email, click the specific email, and so on and so forth. There's actually 10 different options of triggers, which makes it very dynamic. But note that if a letter is not published, so for example, if we're still in the draft of this, and you remove the last trigger in a rung, the entire rung, including all the following steps, will be deleted. But not to worry too much about that. You will get a giant red warning telling you not to do this. But just to note that each ladder does contain a trigger. And note that triggers can be added or edited after a ladder is published. So if we publish a ladder and it's live, we still can go back and we can add and we can edit these triggers as well. So this GIF is actually showing me editing a trigger as well. Triggers only work on conditions that match the activist in the future. They are not retroactive. So it only happens going forward. So you cannot create a ladder and expect it to append to an activist retroactive. This is because triggers are used to determine where in a ladder an activist enters. You can only have one trigger once in each ladder. So for example, you cannot have the subscribed trigger twice in your ladder on different rungs. A workaround for that would be you'd have to make separate ladders to have different things happen when someone subscribes. But that's getting a little bit convoluted. But triggers, just know that you have to have a trigger for each rung, and you have 10 options to choose from. But the most typical trigger is going to be something like they receive a specific email, or they sign up for a certain list, and that would be an action, or they subscribe to a mobile list. Okay, and then the final component of ladders, before we move on with the components and rules of the ladders, is the steps. So we can kind of think about steps as what pathways or experiences will our activists take? So what kind of journey, what kind of conversation flows are we having? These are what steps are. So once activists enter a ladder at a specific rung, they will immediately proceed to the following steps. And a step can be a wait, and we'll talk about that. But it will immediately proceed to the following step, one after another, until they run out of steps and reach an exit, at which point they will exit the ladder. So you can have as many steps as you want, and I'll show an example of that. So we have an example of a template that has an actual full campaign built out. Or you can have less steps if you're not trying to be as complex as having multiple steps. There are 3 types of steps. So first, there's actions. And actions are what it sounds like, kind of in Action Network terminology. These are action steps are steps that a person, an activist, that they have to take that action in order to reach that step. So for example, send an email or send a mobile message. That could be the action that happens at a step. So if I get into that action, then I will receive a specific email. Decisions. So decision steps evaluate the activist record against a custom parameter. So you can enter or move in a pathway based upon yes or no coming off that path. And the decision is based on the result of that evaluation. And I'll go into the demo and show more specific yes or no, but essentially if you think about it, in the survey type example, where we're asking a specific question about did you vote, or do you have a voting plan? If someone was to answer yes, they would go along a specific decision path. If they were to answer no, then we would take them along a different decision path. And then lastly, randomizers. Now, randomizers are pretty much just like decisions, but randomizer steps put activists into one of 2 paths, on the right or the left path. and it's really used for testing. So they allow you to test different email content or mobile content in ladder paths. So the most utilized steps are going to be actions, decisions, and weights. If you're doing some testing, which you probably wouldn't do if you're newer to using this for your program, randomizer is something that you can use in order to test various messaging. So this does provide, Ladders does provide a robust method for obviously automated ongoing conversations, but also testing with randomizers. So you can make a randomizer step, you can choose to weight them. If testing is something that you're doing with your program, and we definitely encourage folks to utilize testing. And you could decide to split activists 50-50 or evenly half and half between the two paths as well. All right, so take a deep breath with me. I know that was quite a bit of information, but luckily just last month, we introduced these handy templates. As you can see here, beautiful templates that we think are super helpful in using the Ladders feature that I kind of broke down and talked about kind of the core components and the rules. And with the templates, it's just really helpful because it actually just gives you a really good starting point. And actually naming what can be done is helpful too. So we provided an email welcome series, which is great for when activists subscribe to your email list. A mobile welcome series kind of speaks for itself, but great, but also legally required for when activists subscribe to your mobile list. So basically opting them in and then kind of taking them along a series of that communication. They opt out, obviously they're no longer part of your list. You want to do email reactivation campaigns, which we talked about a little bit. Which is an important part of maintaining good deliverability. Why? Because you only want to be sending messages to people who want to receive them. You don't want those to be starting to be marked as spam, because that's going to be hurting your ability to deliver your messages in your list as well. And you want to send action follow-ups with a mobile message and email. So that's kind of cool. So you can actually send through two different avenues of communication via email or mobile, or both, to thank activists for taking action and ask for a follow-up via both email and mobile. And then lastly, mobile survey. You can ask your activists if and how they're willing to volunteer for your organization, and you can actually determine organizing priorities and more. Again, we use this survey kind of example when we did Netroots to do a fun game. So it's just another way to engage with folks on your list who have opted in again. And also there is a shortcut, which I'll demo here, that lets you create a ladder directly from an action, email, or mobile message instead of having to navigate to ladders in the navigation menu. You could be in the workflow of actually creating a mobile message, for example, and you can decide that you want this to actually be a ladder. And now with shortcuts, you're able to do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and click away from the PowerPoint and actually go into the live demo. So this here is a training instance of Action Network. My group is called Mobile Message Training. And in this training scenario, it's 2021. We had a very active and busy 2020, obviously, a lot going on, a lot in our country and the world. And for my program, I'm really looking at kind of understanding how folks are feeling at the community level. And we're really looking at targeting really kind of hyper-local take on organizing. So with that, I've decided that we want to do a mobile re-engagement message to re-engage folks and see how they like to get involved in 2021. So I've set up a draft of a mobile message that I want to send out. It's called Get Involved in 2021. I'm gonna go ahead and click on the edit button for this mobile message. And again, in this example, I am an Action Network partner. My group is called Mobile Message Training, and I've turned on my mobile messaging. Now, folks may not have access to mobile messaging. We just recently rolled that out. Not too recently, but I know more and more folks are who are partners are getting their accounts set up. So if you do want to use mobile messaging, we'll follow up more with how you do that if you are a partner. But if you do have access, you will see you do have ability to create a mobile message, which I've done here. All right, I've given it a name, which is Get Involved in 2020. I worked with my comms team to come up with a good message. And we want to really focus in on what is happening in individuals' communities. So we're going to really kind of target this based upon certain zip codes in this training scenario. And here I've used Eclipse, which is available for mobile messages. So I just added in a first name, make it more personalized. I said, thanks for your support in 2020. What issue is most important to you right now? And they can respond A, hunger, B, housing, or C, healthcare, as a way to kind of get an idea of their interests and issues. And I'm going to follow up. My plan is to follow up with an additional message, but I think I would like to use ladders to do that. So I've got approval for this message. It's gone through all in-house approvals. I want to go ahead and save and target my message. So I would click Save and Target to move on to the next screen, which is Target. If you've used Action Network, then this probably looks familiar from your emails tab, which I'll also walk through because we also can create a ladder from email as well. But in this example, I'm showing you mobile messaging. So for this target in this example, I know that my list is already good and tightened up. So I'm going to go ahead and save and preview my list. So now I'm on the preview page. And you can see here that I have the opportunity to schedule a send my message, which I will do. But also newly added just last year is you have a ladder with this message as the trigger. So actually, I have this already set up, but if it's the first time you're setting it up, it will ask you, do you want to set this up as a ladder? You would click create a ladder, and now it's going to automatically link me to a pre-created ladder. So in this pre-created ladder from the template, I'm using the mobile survey template. So this would be, let's go back one message here. From this page, I chose the mobile survey. So when I got to this page, create a ladder, I chose mobile survey, and it then took me to this page, which is already kind of pre-populated with information for that. So I want to go ahead and click edit ladder because I want to walk you through kind of what we talked about with the various components of the ladder. So I'm going to click edit ladder. And here you'll see that we already have a ladder that's built out from the template. And we'll see the components and the additional rules that were already put in place that we can work with. So if you remember back when I was kind of explaining about the components, I talked about how we can add new rungs and how the components include an entrance point. So the entrance point in this example here is they would have received this mobile message that I was just setting up. And once they receive it, then they would start in this ladder once I publish that, or once I send that message out. I would first need to publish this before I send the message out because again, it doesn't work in a retroactive fashion. So we're gonna always have to have this ladder ready. So I can actually click on the trigger, click on the edit button here to see the trigger. So I can double check that. So in here, I can see edit trigger. I can see my various trigger options. As I talked about, we have over 10. And I selected received a specific mobile message. And I have the name of the mobile message here. And in here, we have the step that was already selected. But again, we talked about steps. You have the ability to add an action, a decision, a weight, or a randomizer. So we've already kind of gone over those definitions of what those are. But we can go in here and I can see my decision step, or my weight step rather. Sorry about that. And I can edit that. So here we actually set it up as a wait for a mobile response in store. So I have it, so it's stored into a custom field, the response. I also can edit how long I want the wait to be. So here I have it for 1 hour. And then I can actually choose where I want to store the custom response. So I actually created a field called 2021 activist interest. So I'm going to double check and make sure that that was there, and it is. So the next piece is how do they respond? So again, remember we set up the questions. We had an option to choose A, B, C, or D. I can edit this here as well. So if I were to go to edit, I'd see this is already pre-populated with all the various queries to responses A. So they might respond A, uppercase, lowercase, or with some kind of a wildcard response. But as long as it's some semblance of A, the decision will be send a mobile message if they send me A as a response. And we know that the response for A that I set up in the mobile message was hunger. So they would receive a mobile message that said, you responded hunger, click to learn how you can support hunger alleviation efforts in your community. We can also test these as one-off messages as well. But we're also going to want to test the entire ladder, which we can do in Manage Ladder. So mobile messaging is just one aspect of being able to use these templates. We can also use email. So I'll go into that as well. But in this example, I wanted to kind of show you those core components as well. So we created the message. We know that there was several response types. A, B was housing, and I think C was healthcare. And we'll have a customized message sent based upon how your activist responds or doesn't respond to that message. So they might respond no, and they will exit the message. They will exit the ladder. So we want to make sure that those are set up as well. But with the template, they're already kind of pre-set up. So what you're going to want to do is go in and actually update the messages based upon the information that you shared in that initial mobile message. So in this instance, I showed you that my follow-up message to A is going to be something specific to the question A, which I responded here. So what if you weren't doing mobile messages? Let's say you were sending an email. Let me pop back out here. And I have an email that I would like to demo as well. So we can also set up an automation with our communication using email. So let's say we have an existing email or an email that we're getting ready to send out. I have this, again, in my training scenario, we want to learn more about how folks are feeling at the community level. So we have a campaign that's really looking at collecting those stories. So I want to edit this email. And again, I want to be able to target specific people to go into this ladder or activist. So this is an email that I set up. Subjects are, I'm testing the subject line actually. I want to know, tell us about your community versus what's most important to you right now. I've actually set up the body of the email itself. I have some very specific questions and a trigger in here to an action. So this button here is an example that would click to an action, and that action is going to be my trigger for my ladder. So I can actually go from here, target my email, since it's already set up. And pick my target. So obviously, if you're familiar with Action Network, you have various ways to include or exclude targets. In this example, I'm just going to select folks that have Ohio as a state. And you'll see again, even from email, we can go ahead and create a ladder. So then from this ladder, I can do and pick from these pre-made templates. I can use the mobile email follow-up. And again, you're probably going to want to rename your letter title here. So I'm going to go ahead and give it another name. And now I can actually, I know my entrance point is going to be this ladders training email that was received, but I can also actually edit that trigger. So I could say, took a specific action. In this, and I want to say that they filled out a form, so I can save the trigger. And this could be a specific, I can't say the word. This could be the specific form for that call to action button. And let's say they filled that out. If they were to fill that out, then they would put them into this trigger. It would be a trigger for this ladder. We'll put them into this ladder, and that would be the entrance point. I can actually edit the time between waits, the wait time. So I can select how many days, or I can actually delete this wait if I want to. But in this situation, I don't want to. I want to just, I'm going to make it 3 days. And after 3 days, I want to follow up with a specific email. So I'm going to go ahead and click the edit button because it's already given me an email here. The action is to send an email after 3 days. And it looks a lot just like our emailer here. And you can update all the information here. So I could say, which is already pre-populated. Thanks for taking action. Here's how to follow up with email and next steps. So you're going to want to update and change that information based upon your programmatic needs. You can also see the test from here as well, which I also recommend doing. So I'm going to go ahead and save the action because that looks good to me. But here I want to have a wait step. And I want to wait until a specific date and time. So maybe I want to wait until a week from today. I can also edit my final message here if I want to follow up by mobile. And again, the action type is a mobile message, but I also could change it back to email. It's really kind of completely customizable. And then give it an administration name. So I could say follow up on CTE, action, what have you. And maybe I want to use clips. So here I want to say, I want to add a first name. Do a quick update. Thanks for taking action. And I hit save. And then if this all looks good, and I want to go ahead and hit save and publish. Are you sure you want to publish this ladder? Once it's published, ladders cannot be unpublished. And the activist will start entering the ladder. So I want to publish this prior to sending this email out because the email is going to be actually the trigger. Well, the form is going to be the trigger because I changed it to forms. But once they get that link to the form and they start filling it out, I want them to be able to start going into this ladder. So again, to recap, what we just did in the live demo here is we used our mobile messaging and our email in order to create a message that's going to be an initial trigger for our ladders. And we saw that we have options and opportunities to use a template in order to create the ladder. In mobile messaging, I already had a message set up. And I decided to go ahead and make that as a starting point for the ladder. And we walk through those steps of how you would do that in mobile messaging. We also walk through the steps on how you would be able to set up an email and do the similar thing where you would be able to actually use that email to be the starting point for the ladder. And it really is something that's like customizable to, again, whatever your programmatic needs might be. But the idea of being able to have templates really kind of brings the barrier to entry a little bit down further in ladders, as far as you do not need to create a complete campaign. Again, we do have examples of what a full campaign might look like. As I switch over here to this tab, there is a wealth of knowledge at help.actionnetwork.org where we give plenty of examples on ladders. And you could even, again, sit down and really strategize what it would look like to do something like a full campaign. You might have entrance points and various exit points and entrance points for folks. And this is something that you really want to sit down and map out. But the great thing is with templates, you have a starting point. So it might look like our mobile welcome series, which is a template that you can use. And the whole idea with the training today was really kind of to give you the idea of just the robustness of what ladders can do for your program, as far as continuing those conversations and engaging with folks over time, but also to introduce you to our newest, one of our newest kind of offerings is with the templates with ladders, which we're really excited about, that we hope folks can use in their work every day as you go about setting up email campaigns or setting up mobile message campaigns. It's a hope that you may consider using ladders as a way to get to know more about your folks, better engage people on your list, and really kind of provide some efficiencies within your work. All right, so that is what I have for you today. For today's training, we've actually used the entire time. I promised you that we had a lot to go over, and I see that we do have quite a few questions. I know that I will probably not be able to get to all of them here, but I will definitely field some questions here. And if there are additional questions, you can reach out to me directly at seth@actionnetwork.org. I'll drop it in the chat. And thanks. I see Mari in here fielding some questions. I really appreciate that. And if you are a partner, we do offer support. It's support at actionnetwork.org, in addition to our knowledge base, which again has lots of really good examples and templates to work from as well. And I will be sharing the recording of this video, a recording of today's training. So again, thank you so much for joining us.
Seth, one question that came up, maybe you could show this.
Sure.
Hey folks, this is Mari. What it looks like in an activist record when somebody has responded to a mobile message and we store it as a custom field. So we could just show that in any activist record. We could search for them and then just see like where that information exists.
Right. So I can see that now. I'm not exactly sure if I have that on my training, but we can look and see. Let's see. Wait, actually, I should have it. So let's see. So you want to see on the activist record the response?
Yeah, someone asked for that. And Seth, we are going to send out the training link afterwards, I believe.
Recording link?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Cool.
I keep on checking and making sure that it's actually recording. So we can see the history here. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question again? The question is it stored in the...
So yeah, you can just see it if you scroll down a little bit. It would just show up a little bit further there. It would show up here in the custom field section. So it's not there right now, but that's where if you had stored a response as a custom field, like restored A in survey, then that would show up here.
I mean, I could actually do it for myself. Can I go for myself really quickly? I would have done it for myself, but I didn't actually send that message out. But yeah, it will show
Yeah.
up in the custom field. I did create that custom field today for the example of the custom field that I created today was the 2021 interest. So if I were to actually send that message out to my phone today, and I responded with A, B, C, or D, it will show up on my record here in custom fields, which that's something you want to set up if that's the data you want to store. Does that make sense?
That sounds right to me.
So yeah, I mean, I can show under details, we have our fields. And again, thank you everyone. We actually have reached our time. If you have to drop off, feel free to. I'm going to stay on for about 5 more minutes. But yeah, so here in the custom fields, I set this up today. It's a 2021 activist interest. So for the mobile message example I sent, and since it's a training instance, there's about 3 people on this list. But if I were to respond from that text message, I would have this under fields, I'd have this, it would be stored as 2021 activist interest in my custom field.
And just one note, because I see folks asking about different triggers like tags. We don't have anything yet. We don't have anything planned yet, but we have a couple of things that we've talked about, like being able to trigger a welcome series or a ladder based on a tag being added to a record. Another one was like a recurring report. So every time the report runs, everybody in that report would be triggered into a ladder. So we have a couple of things that we're talking about that would give folks a little bit more flexibility in terms of who they're adding to a ladder and when. But I think Jamie brought up a really good point that you can't trigger a ladder by an upload, but you can upload a list and then send them an email and have that be the first trigger in your ladder. So that's a good point.
Very good point. Yep. And I saw the questions about tags and the triggers. We do have a good list of triggers for the tag. We do have a long list of triggers that are available. So that was a good question. There are, like I said, mentioned 10 different options of being able to do that. So you'll notice that when you go there and set it up, and which ones you want to kind of choose from. But there are some that are more utilized than others. But yeah, that's definitely something to point out as far as the ability to use tags.
Yep. And Neil, you could also have a decision step. So you have a decision step that if this custom field response exists, and then there is an action to add a tag. So in some of the ladder examples that Seth showed were really great, you could add a tag to some of those branches if you wanted to. So I think hopefully that's getting at your answer. Okay. Yes, Deborah, that is correct. They need to respond within the time allotted, but you have total control over that time. So you could make that time 24 hours if you wanted to. And if they responded once they respond, they're triggered out of that step, but they have 24 hours to respond. Does that make sense? Perfect. Correct, Neil.
All right. I think this is one of the largest trainings that we've had. I think thank you so much, everyone that was able to join and hang on. I hope this was helpful for you as you kind of make some thoughts and some decisions on how you're going to engage with folks in the Action Network over the next year. We are here at Support to help answer any questions you might have. Again, a recording will be shared, but feel free to reach out to us and give it a shot, give it a try, and see if it works for you. Hopeful that it will. And thanks again for joining. Take care.